Hi, I'm Stephen, and this is McV Cruise and Travel. Recently took a cruise on MSC Preziosa from Southampton around Northern Europe. MSC seemed to get a lot of mixed reviews, and people seem to have very different experiences on board. Some people love the food, other people think it's not very nice at all, and the options aren't great. Some people love the entertainment, and again, others not so much. So in this video, I'm going to go through our experiences on Preziosa for the week and let you know all the pros and cons of booking this ship or any other MSC cruise and whether or not you might have a good time. Starting off with the embarkation process. With most, if not all cruises, you get given a specific embarkation time that you should arrive at the terminal and then you can check in and get on the ship. In theory, if everyone arrives at the terminal at their allotted time, it spreads the people out through the day and the queues aren't too bad. So you hope that when you turn up there aren't too many people outside. In this case, we'd been given an 11 o'clock check-in, and so we ended up getting to Southampton just before 11, and luckily there was no queues outside, and we sailed straight on into the terminal without any problems. There were obviously a lot of people in the terminal, but everything was flowing quite freely. We didn't really have to queue very long, security wasn't really a problem, and although we did sit for a few minutes just after we did the final bit of check-in, I think overall it maybe took 20 minutes until we were on the ship. So that was nice and quick, and yeah, we were pleased with that. Most MSC cruises have multiple embarkation ports, so whilst you're just getting on the ship and starting your holiday, some people are taking that as a port day, and a good proportion of the guests are going to be getting off and exploring Southampton, or further afield if they're lucky. There are definitely pros and cons to doing this, and I'll go into more of those later on, but certainly from an embarkation point of view, I think it does make it a lot easier to get on a ship when 3,000, 4,000 or people aren't trying to get on at the same time. And I think that's probably why their embarkation process was quite quick and quite seamless. Our cabins weren't ready at this point, but we were told we could go there quickly, drop off our stuff, and pick up our cruise cards. So by 12 o'clock, we'd done that, and we were sat in the bar enjoying our first drink on board. Preziosa was launched in 2013, and we'd sailed on MSC Meraviglia and Virtuosa before, which are much newer ships, and we were worried that it might feel a little bit dated or a bit run down. I mean, we've been on older ships before, and they do vary in that kind of regard. But even though the decor is a bit different, of course, it didn't feel dated or anything like that, and the ship actually had been really well maintained. We didn't see any real problems or anything that looked run down or needing replacing, anything like that. So yeah, the ship was really nice. I do have a ship tour on my channel, so if you haven't watched that already, go and watch that one after you've watched this. And I also have one for Virtuosa as well, if you're interested as a comparison, as well as a number of other videos for different cruises that we've done and other trips. So check that out after this. When we booked originally, we booked an inside cabin, just because that's the most affordable option and gives us the opportunity maybe to cruise a little bit more because we save money in that respect. But we took advantage this time of the MSC upgrade program. So a couple of weeks before your cruise, they'll normally send you an option to upgrade. And we chose to take a chance on that, booked for an outside cabin because we thought that might be a little bit different. We haven't been in an outside before. We've done inside and balcony, but not in between. So we thought we'd give it a try and see what happens. We got the email to say we were successful in that bid, which was great. And then when we went online to have a look at it and see where the cabin was, it turned out we'd been upgraded all the way to a premium balcony. So this was amazing. Obviously, we were over the moon with that. The cabin was so spacious, probably the biggest one we've ever had, I think, and laid out nicely. There was a nice little sofa area that you get, and it was great to be able to just sit there and look out to sea, which we didn't spend a lot of time doing, to be fair, but it was nice to have the option and to get that daylight in a balcony cabin or maybe an outside cabin is really nice actually, and it does make a difference. We met our cabin steward, Manny, who came to introduce himself, say hi, and let us know he'd be looking after us while we were here. And he was really nice and very friendly, and we'd see him outside of the cabin or up in the corridor every now and again. He'd always make a point to say hello, ask us how our day was going and things like that. And one thing that MSC do, which a lot of cruise companies have now stopped, is the 2 services a day in your cabin. So you'll get your normal one in the morning where they'll come in, tidy up a little bit, sort the bathroom out, new towels if you need it, all that kind of stuff. But you still get the one in the evening where they do the turn down service. So that's quite a nice touch still, I think. And as I say, not that many of them do it now. As a surprise, Glenn had ordered the Bon Voyage package, which gave us a bottle of Prosecco in the room with a couple of MSC flutes that we could take home as well. A fruit bowl, which was topped up every day, some canapes, and a letter from the captain, I think. So that was a really nice surprise. We sat on the sofa, ate our canapes and had a glass of champagne. We did sit out on the balcony for a few minutes, but Southampton in March wasn't that warm, to be honest. But before we went to our cabin, we were hungry and we needed to get some lunch. So it's a good time to talk about the food and dining. There are two main dining rooms on board, unless you're staying in the yacht club, which has its own. There's the Golden Lobster, which is set across two different levels, and then L'Arabesque is the other included dining room. You also have the Inca and Maya buffet, which is included, of course, and open from about 6:30 in the morning, I think, for breakfast, all the way through to maybe like 2 a.m. for late night snacks. So here's something that's worth knowing. MSC had the dining room open for lunch on embarkation day, which you don't normally get. So I think it's probably because they have people coming on and off at different ports, and so it needs to be open for everyone else on board. But that was really good. So we went into the dining room for our lunch, and it was a nice, calm, sit-down meal, rather than going up to the buffet and fighting maybe what would be crowds. But having said that, the crowds probably weren't too bad because, again, a lot of the people were off the ship enjoying their port day. So win-win. Oh, and another thing to look out for is the brunch that they do on one of the sea days. So instead of having breakfast and lunch service, they'll just combine the two, and it might start a little bit later. So you can have a bit of a lane if you want to, which is always a bonus. And the menu was really good, and we had, in this case, steak and eggs. As soon as I saw that, nothing else mattered. That's what I knew I was going to have for my brunch. For dinner, even though MSC are more of a casual cruise line for the most part, they do have set dining times, unless you're in the yacht club, I think, when you can choose potentially. But for the most part, there are two different sets of times, depending on which dining room you're in, and maybe which sailing you're on. On this cruise, we were booked in and we were on the late dining, which was 8:30. So this was a little bit late for us, and we wanted to see if we could change that. So on the day you get on the ship, you can go and see the maitre d' at the restaurant, just to ask them if there's any other available tables that you can move to. There's no guarantees, of course, and this was pretty busy when we did it, so you're best to get in there as quickly as you can. But luckily, they were able to change us over, so from the second day, we got a 6 o'clock table, which was a much better time for us. So, onto the food itself. This is something, again, that gets lots of different reviews, and maybe it varies based on where you cruise from, which ship you're on. Potentially that's why it's so divisive. But yeah, some people love the food, think it's really great, and others just don't rate it so much. But I have to say, on this ship and on this cruise, we really enjoyed all of the food that we had, actually. There was maybe one or two things that I didn't like, but that was more that it just wasn't to my taste. It wasn't that it wasn't cooked well or that it tasted unpleasant, just that, yeah, it wasn't quite my taste. So that was my own choices, really. But otherwise, yeah, we really enjoyed everything. Everything seemed fresh, it was warm. There were a lot of different options, whether that was in the main dining room or in the buffet. And in the buffet, it's all spread out quite nicely around the whole thing. There's loads of different choices and some slightly different things depending on how far you go around the buffet itself. And one thing that's really good to try is the pizza. I have to say, the buffet pizza on MSC is some of the best that we've had at sea. We didn't try any of the speciality dining on this cruise, but that is something we want to do on another one, if we can. But in the main dining room, they do have some options for an extra charge. Some people don't agree with this, but we decided on the last day to give ourselves a bit of a treat, and we ordered a T-bone steak, which was on the menu as an extra charge of €22, I think, which does sound a little bit steep for something like that. But actually, when we got it, the quality of it was amazing, the taste was just beautiful, and it was cooked perfectly. So I think it was well worth giving it a go, and quite a nice substitute compared to the butcher's cut, which is quite a bit more expensive. The other option you could have was a lobster tail, and I always like to look around at what other people are having. I did see someone have the lobster tail, and again, it looked amazing, so it's probably worth trying, even if the cost looks a little bit steep to begin with. Next to the food, the other most important thing is the drinks, of course. On this cruise, we had the premium extra drinks package, and we got a really good deal on that when we booked it at the time, so it's worth looking out for that when you do book. This includes drinks up to €14, so that covers most of your cocktails, your premium spirits, wine, prosecco, champagne, at least one type anyway, as well as soft drinks, bottled water, and specialty coffees. The choice of the drinks does differ between some bars and lounges, So we had to try all of them, of course, just for research purposes. Overall, there was a really good selection of drinks included in the package, and I think for us at least it was worth going for at the price that we got it at the point of booking. And I think I'll do a separate video of that just to go in a bit more detail as to what kind of things are included, what we had, and how much it cost us. The entertainment offerings on most ships is pretty similar in terms of your main live theatre shows. You'll have bands and solo artists performing around the ship, as well as quizzes, as well as quizzes, and the all-important dance classes that you see everywhere. All of these types of things are quite subjective. Not everyone is going to enjoy the same things, but I do think that most people would find something that they enjoy watching. We went to the theatre twice to see a couple of shows. One of them we thought was going to be music from the movies, but it turned out to be more of a music from the musical versions of movies, and so it wasn't quite our thing, to be honest, but the singing and the dancing was pretty good. The second one was a circus-themed show, and although I don't think it had much of a storyline, again, they were singing and dancing, which was very good. They had some acrobatics, some juggling, some people on trampoline, which was cool, and they had a lady that was spun around and dangling by her hair, so it was all very entertaining and quite impressive, actually. We also caught a couple of the bands playing in different places and thought they were really good, and quite a good variation of music as well, so again, something that most people would be able to find and enjoy. My only slight complaint with the entertainment, and I think this was more to do with the ship and the available venues that there were, is that it would change quite quickly and go from one kind of vibe to another quite quick. So, for example, we were in the Safari Lounge on most evenings, and we might get there and there'd be a band on. They were doing some really good songs. It was a great atmosphere. Some people were up dancing and having fun, and then they'd take a break. Obviously, that's fine. It's understandable. But in the between times, they'd bring on a dance class. And that's quite a different feeling, and if you're there just to listen to the band, you don't necessarily want to sit to watch people learn to dance. So they didn't last too long. It was maybe half an hour, 40 minutes or whatever, but it just felt very stop-start and made the evening feel a little bit weird. And the band would come back eventually, so that was fine and you could just stay there. But it was just odd. I guess the dance class didn't really have anywhere else to go. But that's only a really small gripe, to be honest, so nothing really to worry about from that point of view. We did get invited to a welcome back on board event because we've sailed with MSC before. This was in the theatre and was hosted by the captain, so it was a nice thing to go to, if not a bit odd in some ways. The captain did a bit of a speech and introduced some of the different team members on board, which was quite interesting to get to know them and their jobs. They showed us a little bit about MSC World America, which is their newest ship, so again, interesting to see that. Then they had a magician come on and do just a small bit of magic, and surprised one of the crew just by asking them to spontaneously sing a song, apparently. But it was worth going to, if nothing else, because they gave you a glass of Prosecco on your way in, which was quite a nice idea. And as a tip, make sure if you do go to this event, sit on one of the ends of the aisles in the theatre, because they had waiters going up and down, refilling your Prosecco, and then we were stuck in the middle and I couldn't get an extra glass. But where, if people don't have the drinks package, that's quite a nice event to go to and be able to get a free drink. It's always a bonus. There was another captain's event held in the atrium this time, and when you went to that, they were offering out a couple of different cocktails for free. So that's a really nice touch and not something you actually see in most other cruise lines, to be honest. We found most of the crew on board to be really friendly and helpful, whether that was in the dining room, in the different bars, or a cabin steward, as I mentioned earlier. He was great. So yeah, we didn't have any problems with them at all, and found that the service was always really good. And though it's going to be busy in some places, you sometimes do have to wait to get a drink or to have a waiter come over to you. That's going to be the same in most ships, so I don't think that was any different here than it would be anywhere else. There are a few different MSC ships that sail from Southampton at different points through the year. Preziosa had been doing a few different Northern European cruises, which is what we were on. And this went to Hamburg, Rotterdam, Bruges, Le Havre. And as I said earlier, it picks people up or embarks people at different ports. So in fact, the home port for this ship is Hamburg. MSC Preziosa also sails from Southampton quite regularly, but this is a bit different and it's geared up more for the British cruising market, and for the most part doesn't pick up guests at any other port other than Southampton. Embarking guests at different ports does have some positives and negatives. and it's worth considering these before you book a cruise or before you get on board. For example, on the plus side, as I mentioned earlier, you're not getting 3,000 or 4,000 people trying to get on the ship at the same time, so the embarkation process is a lot smoother in different places, and you don't have to wait as long. You can usually get on a bit earlier, I think. So on a port day, the ship can feel a little bit quieter because, as well as people getting off and enjoying that port, a lot of other people are going to be disembarking as well. So if you are staying on board, you can probably have a few more spaces to yourself until people start drifting in a little bit later on. And I think actually having different nationalities on board, or a wider range of different nationalities, does make quite a difference. It gives the ship quite a nice multicultural feel. And for me, I think hearing different foreign languages makes me really feel like I'm on holiday. The flip side of this, though, is having people embark at every different port means that you've got the mandatory muster drills every day, or every other day. So for a good hour in the afternoon, you've got all of the different announcements and people mustering, and that does get a little bit annoying, to be honest, but by the end of the week, you just tune it out. And that leads me on to another point. So with so many different nationalities on board, the crew obviously have to speak so many different languages, and the announcements are in quite a few different languages. So you'll get English, French, German, Spanish, Portuguese maybe, potentially others. And whilst it's really impressive to hear people just switch so effortlessly between different languages, it makes the announcements last quite a while. So again, not a big deal, but a slight annoyance sometimes. And as well as the announcement, that goes for the theatre shows as well. So before you go into the show, the cruise director will do a little bit of a talk. And again, that's in all of these different languages. So not the end of the world, but just something to know about. Having said that, the shows themselves, where there was speaking, was generally English. The majority of the songs were in English, and if you see any other bands or artists around the ship, generally they were speaking English and singing English songs. One last thing to note that just felt maybe just a little bit odd was that there wasn't really a start or end to the cruise. Normally when you get on, you might have a sail away party, signifies the start of your holiday, but because this is just one continuous loop of cruises essentially, and people getting on and off all the time, there wasn't like a welcome to your first day and a goodbye kind of feeling. Again, not a problem, but just something that felt a little bit different compared to a traditional cruise you might be more used to. All of these are only minor points, to be fair though, and none of it spoiled our enjoyment of the cruise. And one other thing I nearly forgot to mention, I think because you're, again, embarking and disembarking people at different ports, you seem to get longer in port with MSC. Some of the days were like 10 to 12 hours. So if you are going a little bit further afield or on an excursion, you don't have that pressure of the tight time to get back to the ship. So I think that was a really good thing. So that's kind of everything really covered off about the ship and our cruise that we had. Just to summarise, we really enjoyed it. Yes, there are differences compared to what you might be used to on a cruise from the UK, but not bad by any means, and some of that we really enjoyed and actually maybe preferred. We'd definitely cruise with MSC again, and definitely on Preziosa again. It was a really nice ship. As I said earlier, I've got a ship tour on my channel, so check that out if you haven't done already. I'm going to be working on some videos to show you a bit of what we got up to in Hamburg, Bruges, Rotterdam and Le Havre as well, so keep an eye out for those. Otherwise, thank you for watching this. Thank you for making it to the end. I think it's a bit of a longer video again. But yeah, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. Give the video a thumbs up, and thank you very much.